In the year 1984, everyone who tries to be an individual is slowly silenced by this corporation called Big Brother and the Thought Police. How do I feel about that? Let's read 1984 and find out. Welcome back to BG's Books. I'm Mr. BG, and today I will be reviewing 1984 by George Orwell. So, the last video I did on this channel, my review of Moby Dick, while getting a lot of views, the most views of all of my videos of this year so far, the reaction to it was less than stellar, we can say. You guys have had a lot of thoughts. I've been reading the comments, and you guys did not like the fact that I wasn't very much into Moby Dick. So I will reread that eventually, and then I will make an update video. But I hope I can make it up to you by doing 1984 by George Orwell. So basically, 1984 was written in 1948 and published in 1949 by George Orwell, which is a pseudonym for Eric Arthur something. I don't remember his last name. And it was considered George Orwell's last book before he died the next year, 1950. And it goes over a lot of themes of censorship, violence, individuality, and all this other stuff of like evil corporations and stuff. So, like, if you've read like The Running Man by Richard Bachman, also known as Stephen King, which should be right here somewhere. It's in that pile. It's right there. Yeah. So that should be familiar. Animal Farm, that's another George Orwell one. That's actually the first George Orwell book I ever read, because back when I was in high school, that was required reading for 9th grade. So I've read Animal Farm once, and I would love to do it again. But yeah, so basically 1984 is your standard like dystopian society where people control everything, like media and stuff controls everything. No one has privacy. No one can be individuals. And so, yeah, that type of thing. But so to further explain what 1984 is about, I guess I should actually talk about it. Set in the then future year of 1984, 1984 follows Winston Smith, a guy who's working for a company known as The Party. But later on, he quickly realizes that he doesn't really like the party, and so he starts jotting down his own individual notes in a journal. Anyway, so eventually he meets this girl named Julia, and he does not like women. The book goes out of the way to say that he hates women. And then basically she kind of wears him down by saying that she loves him. So he's like, okay. So then they start meeting up in secret places and discussing things. And so basically Julia's whole thing is, I was bred just to reproduce, but I don't want to do that act just to reproduce. I want to do it just to have some fun, and I've been around the block. Yeah. So Winston's like, oh yeah, that's good. I like that. And so basically for about the first third of this book, or I guess about the second third of this book, it's just kind of them falling in love and stuff. And meanwhile, while Winston's at work one day, he meets this guy named O'Brien, and O'Brien really wants to stick it to Big Brother. Like, he really wants to stick it to Big Brother. He hates the party. He hates Big Brother, who's like the leader of the party. And he just doesn't like it. So he's like, hey, Winston, so I need you and Julia to get over here, and I'm going to explain some things. Are you willing to basically sacrifice everything you love in order to shut down this government conspiracy? And they're both like, yes. So O'Brien's like, great. So Winston, you should be getting a book in a briefcase very soon, and it's basically everything that Big Brother doesn't want you to hear about it. It's basically an expose piece on everything. And so Winston eventually gets the book, and he starts reading it. And you'd be forgiven if you could consider the part where he's reading all this stuff about Big Brother and the government and stuff to be very boring. It certainly is like the main part of the book that slows it down, but it is so important to the story. I think it's the best part of the book just because of how much it explains and stuff. And so Winston's like, yeah, this is great. Meanwhile, he's still hanging out with Julia. They're falling in love and stuff. But then one day, while Winston is reading the book, he and Julia get captured by the thought police who have been spying on them. And so this is where the last part and most depressing part of 1984 actually happens. So all of part 3 takes place in a sort of jail, mental asylum, I guess you could say. And Winston wakes up there. He doesn't know how long he's been there. He doesn't know where he is. But basically, so O'Brien has basically been like a covert operation sneak guy who's just been trying to find anyone who would want to stand up to Big Brother. And basically, he's just like, hey, Winston, I'm a bad guy. And then Winston's like, no! So basically, Winston is like trying to grapple with that and stuff. And then here at this place, they do a lot of experiments on people with the goal of curing them. So basically, O'Brien basically explains that the more people dislike Big Brother, the more people need to change. And because Big Brother is the ruler of all, basically the ruler of the world, everyone must either conform to Big Brother or die. And so it's this giant like philosophical conversation about who's in charge here and like how people are like being surveilled and stuff. It is deep stuff. I don't fully understand it, but that's what I'm getting from it. It is deep stuff. So anyway, Winston's like, I'm the last man in Europe. I'm the last man in the world that actually wants Big Brother to go down. But he's like beaten up and stuff. He just looks terrible. And so he's like, maybe I can't stop you, but eventually one day Big Brother will come down. And O'Brien's like, yeah, right. So anyway, after a while of this torture and stuff, O'Brien takes Winston to room 101, which is very scary because it basically has whatever you fear the most in there. And so O'Brien attaches Winston to this cage with 2 rats and opens the thing. And because rats are very scary and stuff, they can like rip you apart and eat you and stuff. Winston's like, no, do it to Julia, not me, please. Do it to Julia. That is so powerful. He loves Julia, but yet he's willing to have her tortured over himself. So O'Brien decides to stop, and then stuff moves on. But in the final pages of the book, Winston gets conformed to liking Big Brother. So that was a bit of a dark ending. But yeah, so 1984 is a dystopian novel. It's actually one of the first like modern day dystopian novels. There were novels before that were considered dystopian, but 1984 was actually considered utopian back in the 40s. But yeah, so it is still very prevalent today just because of all the stuff it has, like being monitored by screens. No one has privacy anymore. Everyone is ruled by some sort of technology or whatever, and a lot of other things, which is very true, especially considering it's 2025, when social media is basically the ruler of the world, similar to Big Brother. So, yeah, so George Orwell, he was a master at writing warnings to people or allegories, like Animal Farm was of course an allegory for the Russian Revolution, and the 1984 is basically warning, saying, hey, stuff is not good right now, but if we don't let it take over us, we can overcome it and we can be a better society. So I think 1984, even though it's 76 years old now, because 1949, I think that's 76 years. Yeah, so even though 1984 is quite an old book at this point, it is still very much prevalent, probably even more so than it ever was in the 40s. And if you're wondering why it's called 1984, supposedly from what I found out, that was because George Orwell was writing it in 1948 and just switched 48 around and then got 84. That's kind of a little weird and stupid, but okay then. Anyway, so 1984 is certainly very something. It is dark, it is disturbing, it is thrilling, it is brilliant, and it's thought-provoking. It is a lot of things, and I really enjoyed the book. Like, not just because it's a short book, don't get me wrong, it is rather short, but I just love it for its themes of control and who's in charge here, and screens running everything, and people not being able to have privacy anymore and stuff like that. It's all very prevalent stuff, especially today. And of course, it inspired other dystopian novels, like, say, for instance, The Running Man, where TVs run everything. And I would also point to another example, right behind me right there, Fahrenheit 451, where, of course, screens run everything and books are obsolete and everything. And yeah, 1984 is just really good. It's a super fast read, and it is very thought-provoking. So as someone who likes thought-provoking stuff like Dune and like The Running Man and stuff, and I guess Fahrenheit 451 as well, 1984 is just a great add-on to that collection. I highly recommend it to anyone who not only likes science fiction, but also dystopias, just books in general, and just anyone who likes George Orwell, because it is just a super solid book with a really solid message that still, even though it's age, still resonates today. But anyway, so that, guys, is my review for 1984. I really enjoyed this book, so I hope I have made up to you guys for not liking Moby Dick as much as I wanted to. But yeah, so you guys let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Do you love this book? Do you hate it? Have you not read it before? And does this video make you want to read it? But yeah, anyway, yeah, that's about it. But remember, Big Brother is watching you.